Welcome to Shine, Delusion, Shine, the radical art of dreaming beyond boundaries. I am Vicki Todd, and together with Dr. Pat, we will learn to push the boundaries of our minds, to think delusionally, and create fertile ground for our big dreams to seed, grow, and manifest. Each episode, we will gain more ability to think delusionally and cultivate beyond boundaries faith that we can accomplish dreams which seem unreachable. Shine, Delusion, Shine is a springboard to believing, dreaming, and thinking beyond the ordinary, and a catalyst to living a more fulfilling, destiny-driven life. You are born with dreams, gifts, and talents you are meant to use to make this world brighter. Let your delusional dreams shine. It all starts now.
Hey everyone, I want to welcome you to a special show today. Signs, carpenter ants, flower snakes, butterflies, and the latest I want to add to my list are little sparrow eggs that just hatched at my front door. Vicki, thank you for this topic today. Let's get into it. You know, signs, where they're everywhere, but are we awake enough to see them? So what is it about the Divine Muse? Tell us about that, and tell us about how you've been communicating and how you see the signs in your life.
Okay, well, I think I have started noticing this when I answered that call, to 2013 to quit my professor job and start moving on this journey of being an artist. But it seems like lately the signs are just getting deeper and more intense and more frequent. And so after our last show last month, I had the chance to go to, via Zoom, this new moon class. And it was facilitated by the lady who was my story coach during my one-woman show. We worked together 5 years ago in 2020. So kind of like you, Dr. Pat, she popped back into my life. And I took the class because it was called Fire and Bone Ancestor Stories. And I think I mentioned to you last fall when we were getting this show together, I'm thinking about a book. I'd like to kind of expand what my 2 stage plays are about my life and my ancestor stories. So this seemed perfect. So during that class, she said, kind of focusing on your body and where does heat show up? And I was so focused on my front, just knowing that one of my 7 chakras was going to, start sizzling, and nothing happened. And I'm like, okay, where's the heat? Where's the heat? I felt it in my shoulder blades. And I'm like, oh, shoulder blades, what does that mean? Wings, that's where wings would sprout. And so I've been contemplating for 2 years to do this new sculpture series. It's going to be the next one I'm working on, of a female figure with either deer antlers, a deer mask, and attached hand-painted fabric wings. And I was like, whoa, something's going on here. And so later in the class, she said, think of an image that, shows what you've been thinking about during this class. And very recently, I had just seen on Instagram and Facebook 2 images. One was a sculpture of a deer with wings, and one was a jewelry piece of a deer with wings. Deer for me is an ancestral symbol, but the wings are new. And so I thought, this is deep. The train has already left. Ancestors are telling me, sprout your wings and start this book project. And so I did. This is the biggest thing I've done since working on my dissertation more than 20 years ago. I've signed up with that coach and another coach working together. It's a year-long commitment to write an ancestral memoir. And so to put this in context, when I do a stage play, for an hour-long play, you usually want around 10,000 words. For this, we need around 80,000 words.
Wow.
And so, the goal is to have 5,000 words a month. And so this is big. And I'm like, oh my gosh. It's a huge elephant-sized call. We've talked about Joseph Campbell's call, and I know I have to do it, but I was totally freaking out. And I had a dream one night before I totally committed, and I was in my condo here in Santa Fe, fierce wind. It blew a big trash bin through my living room window, and my dad, who died in 2018, was in the condo with me. And he didn't fix the window, but I knew he was there. And so then I woke up and I'm like, well, what does that mean? Usually Daddy would fix something. And so I looked up broken window dream. And of course it has positive and negative, but the thing that really stuck out to me was A symbol of transformation, and B, knowing who you truly are and what you need to work on. And so I feel like Daddy was saying, I'm giving you strength, you know, his masculinity, you need to follow through. So I've signed up and here we go.
But, part of that is saying yes. And, you and I have talked about this, but it's one thing to talk about following the signs. And, they're called many things, aren't they? I was
Yes.
just on a call with a woman and we talked about, what do we call it? Do we call it channeling? Do we call it downloading? What do we call it? And, I don't know that it's as important to give it a word, because it's very hard when you hear, see, feel
Mhm.
that thing that you are meant to do.
Right.
And sometimes you'll face a challenge, right?
Oh
And
my
out
God.
of the challenge will become the next biggest idea. That's what happened to me in all three of the trademarks, having some kind of issue. Out of that, in preparing, comes new ideas. But the signs are everywhere. And this morning, I was not aware of the meaning of this sparrow little. I'm going to do something I never do on air, but this little sparrow thing, right? This sparrow, the 4 eggs the sparrow had, cute little thing. We found him right in the front door I'm in the Pacific Northwest, so
Mhm.
grass grows here. So you see a lot of people with these big grass things.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in there, we went to trim it back and there were these eggs, and we're like, oh no, don't touch it. And so
Oh,
we've been guardians over the eggs. So we've been checking the little mom and dad or whatever they are floating up there. We're very mindful when we cut the grass. They watch over it, but we've taken a peek, and every morning we go and we look. And this morning, I don't know if this is on
oh,
camera or not,
how
but this
precious.
morning, there they are.
Oh,
But I never looked up the sign and the meaning, and then I did. So let's talk about the signs, the meaning. So this is a sign. This is an elephant-sized dream that
yes.
you said yes to. It's one thing to get a sign. It's one thing to see nature calling. It's another thing to do something about it. So tell
Right.
us about that.
Well, that's the thing. You can't poo-poo it, you know, and if you do poo-poo it, you're going to miss it. And so, I, like I said, so many things have been happening. After our first show of Shine Delusion Shine in January,
Yeah.
I was just going to go run errands. I went to the post office and I thought, I need new stamps. It just turned to be Year of the Snake. Yay, that's my year. And so I don't know if you've seen them, but it's a green winding snake with red flowers all over the body. And I was like, oh my gosh, because the month before in December, I had just finished sculpting a sculpture that I hope I'll have ready to premiere in our May show. But it has 4 ancestor symbols. And for my mom, around the arm is a snake, a flower snake that goes around, you know, twining around her arm like a bracelet and has flowers all over it. And so I was thinking about painting the flowers red, you know, they're little snapdragon flowers. And I just kind of feel like that was my mom with the flower snake on the stamps after our show saying, good job, this is awesome. So, you know, it doesn't always have to be you know, this big elephant-sized dream and these signs my ancestors are pushing me toward doing it. It can just be a little, hey there, you're doing a great job and I love what you're doing.
Yes. And then this is what I want to say in all of this is, we don't get these signs just because, hey, feng shui. No, we get the signs because there's purposeful, powerful meaning in it. One, we don't stop long enough to smell the roses. We
Right,
don't stop. But what you're telling us is it just requires a nanosecond of awareness to be guided. And then the information you get could be to your next great idea, your next big fortune, your motivational energy, whatever that is. Isn't
right.
that part of your message today? It's not
Absolutely.
always about art, right? But you and I, in our own right, if you see my back wall,
Uh-huh.
I created glass, but I created them based on the chakra colors. And so I didn't create a whole chakra thing. I created separate glass pieces that are all unique. Somebody said to
Cool.
me, why?
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 Why you do that? My answer was, I was called to do it. That's it.
Right. It's following your intuition. It's hooking into that higher power, your true self, that divine muse, your ancestors, if they're trying to tap into you, and, just listening to it. And so, like when I saw the snakes or the, flowering snake stamps in the post office, as soon as the guy brought them out and I was about to pay for them, I just felt this little, happy bubble in my heart. Like, hey, that's a cool thing. And I got home and I thought about it and I thought, well, what does this mean? And my mom passed in 2020, and it took me a while to open up, to see signs from her because, our relationship had been kind of contentious, and, I was afraid, to let anything in. So a couple of years after she passed, I noticed that when I was sculpting, a gnat would just be right in my face in an irritating way, getting up and behind my glasses. And here I'm working with this gooey, muddy clay. And I thought, okay, Nat, you're about to get squished into the clay. This is not a good space for you. But all of a sudden it just popped into my mind. I think that's my mom. Like I feel that some people's spirits are in certain insects, birds, flowers, whatever. And so I said, well, why are you taking on such a small little entity of this gnat? And in my heart, I just felt like she said, I don't want to bother you. I don't want to be in your way. Well, as I kind of get used to this and kind of keep opening up, I said, well, is there anything else that you would like to be? Something a little bit more exciting than just a little bitty gnat. And I felt her say anything red, because red was her favorite color. So now when I see the red flowers on the flower snake stamp or a cardinal, anything like that, a beautiful red flower on Facebook or out in nature, I think that's her saying, hello, I'm with you, I'm watching over you. And so it's so tiny, it doesn't have to be this huge thunder and lightning moment from the heavens.
But sometimes it's that moment that could shift a person from complete despair,
Yes.
hopelessness, to give them a new spark.
Yes.
Don't you think? I mean, you and I, we have a similar thing, but here's the message too. The signs don't just show up as signs. You can communicate and you will get further guidance. Have you found that to be true for yourself?
Absolutely. And one thing you said earlier, that sometimes the really huge elephant-sized calls that scare us, the thing that popped into my mind, and I want to say it before I forget, Joseph Campbell had that quote, "The cave that you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek." And so I truly believe that the Divine Muse, our ancestors, these signs and symbols, dreams, nature, they're trying to guide us toward these delusional dreams. Another really cool one that I've experienced recently, I went with an art group to Oaxaca this past October. And we were getting out of the city of Oaxaca to go visit a blind potter in a village. And so we're taking this little bus, and I'm sitting toward the back of the bus, turned backwards, talking to the group's instructor, and it's a Scottish fiber artist from Glasgow, Scotland. And she's the reason, me taking her classes for the past 2 years, that's why I'm thinking about doing hand-painted fabric wings. And so hopefully I'll get to that next. But as I'm sitting in the back of the bus, looking out the back window, on the side of this store is a white plastic sign. Pat, I kid you not, it literally had my name in quotes, Vicki, next to a black illustration of a butterfly. And a butterfly is one of the symbols for my grandmother. She can be ladybug, moth, butterfly. And I was like, whoa, okay, I'm awake, paying attention. Well, we get to the Blind Potter's studio, and he creates these beautiful, nude female figures, and they have these wonderful, just flowing long necks. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's so, just feminine energy and just flowing. And I'm like, that's cool. I want to take inspiration from that. Well, we go out into his garden and look around. This fog of tiny white butterflies just gets into my face, kind of like that little gnat was. And I'm like, what is going on? I can't even see walking through this garden, but the tiny white butterflies. And I think, oh, the butterfly sign, somebody is trying to tell me something. So
Yeah.
I think it was my grandmother, who was also an artist, saying, pick up as much inspiration as you can. That place had such a wonderful energy. And after the fact, I remembered, my grandmother had started a China shop and taught China painting and oil painting classes in her attic in Happy, Texas when I was a little kid. And she let me sit in. And I remember she let me paint a China butterfly. And I wish I still had it, but I thought, oh my gosh, that symbol for her was set way back there, like when I was 7 or 8 years old. And here we are in 2024 in Oaxaca, and all these butterflies are up in my face and on that plastic sign. And so it was like a magical, super high frequency, super wonderful energy moment. And I'll treasure that forever.
Yeah.
But I'll always remember, take in that inspiration.
Yeah. And I want to tell people, even though we're talking about nature, the signs don't always come from nature.
No.
I'll tell you, Linda's mom has been a great mentor for me. She's now above, and yet we both get messages from her. And sometimes we listen. So Joan sends us messages by penny heads up. That's her
Okay.
thing, a penny heads up. And she's the one that taught me, when you see a penny on the street, pick it up. And what was her message? Her message was, everything is of value. If you don't pay attention to a penny, you won't pay attention to that $1 million that you get one day.
That's wonderful.
That was Joan. And so I have 2 lamps, which I can't show you here, but I will take pictures. And they're beautiful Chinese dragon lamps. And whenever Joan needs to get her attention, the same lamp, the first experience was it jumped off the table and landed on the floor and didn't really break the bulb. That's Joan.
Wow.
The second one is the same lamp, not too long ago, had that same part of it fracture again out of nowhere, like no pressure. And I'm telling you, I'm gluing this thing with the glue that would glue the earth, just saying. But I now know to stop, and I look at the lamp, and I see the beautiful dragon nature in it. And I stopped to ask her, Joan, what am I missing? What am I not getting? And the last time I did this, she said, you need to believe in yourself, and you need to believe in the vision and direction you're going.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And don't compromise.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful.
Now, people might be listening to this and saying, you, Dr. Pat, what? You don't. No, some days I'm down a quart. Like I've had some really weird stomach thing this week, which acts like food poisoning. It's not an illness or a sickness. It's something. Mary Jane Mack worked with me yesterday. But why did it happen? It happened for me to slow down.
Yeah.
It happened for me to give some thought. It happened for me to release things. But what you're talking about, let's continue for this, because there is one little beautiful thing you, myself, and Linda have in common.
Okay.
They land on my hand. They've always been a totem. They love Linda. Of course, dragons of any kind. We can be walking there in Santa Fe with you. We can be walking out there in the desert land or the high desert, and a lizard would show up right in front of Linda.
Oh,
dragonfly.
Yes.
The dragonfly.
Yes.
Come on now. Tell me what that means to you.
This is the body print that I chose because, she's looking at this little butterfly, and that's what we've been talking about, to pay attention. It may be the small thing down there, but look at it, pay attention. I have a body print that's of my back, but I made dragonfly wings. And so I wish I had the picture to show you today. But I had looked up dragonfly meaning, and, they're like little helicopters. And so they can change direction very quickly. And so that's the same kind of thing we were talking about last time, setback, perspective shift to comeback. That's changing your perspective really quickly. And so like on this sculpture back here, communion, because I'm not kidding, my ancestor symbols are getting more and more and more into my paintings, my sculpture, now my writing. But this communion is four ancestor generations. So my great grandmother Jessie, she's represented by the deer head. She tragically died in a kitchen fire when she was in her early 30s when my grandmother was 13. And so this was in 1921. And Jessie was heating wax on her stove, to put on the wood floors, and her dress sleeve caught on fire. And she was aware enough and loving enough to yell for my grandmother and her brother to run out of the house. And so if she had not have done that, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today. And so I kind of see that as that beautiful, gentle, aware deer energy. The pink flowers on the forehead, and it goes down her neck and the back, that symbolizes my grandmother, because on a lot of her china, she would paint pink flowers, and we shared the love of the color pink. Her house was even carnation pink brick. And so, that kind of symbolizes her. And I did this 2 years ago. So I painted a snapdragon vine going up one leg, and that's to symbolize my mom, even before I did the flower snake. So it's a snapdragon vine, and to me, that's kind of symbolizing the beautiful yet biting relationship that we've had. The dragonfly on the hand is me. And so I love how great grandmother is looking down at great granddaughter, but it's just gently resting on her hand at the moment. But that dragonfly has the power to move all over the place. And so to me, that's what dragonfly means, is perspective shift.
Yeah. So what are we talking about here? Dragonfly is also one of the transformation. Am I making that up? I believe it's one of the transformation totems. The other part of this is its history goes back so many gazillion million years, right? So when we get an energy like this, let's talk about your journey in doing something, because you make the transition from seeing it, you may paint it, right?
Right.
Whatever you do, people should know that a sign is great, but there is a next step. Usually a sign is a call to action. It doesn't matter what you read. If you go back ancient scriptures thousands of years ago, when they show you signs or they talk metaphors, there's an action. And so isn't that part of the journey of signs and symbols?
Absolutely. I mean, like I said, it can be just a friendly wave. I'm watching over you. I love what you're doing. But usually there is a deeper meaning there. And that's what we really have to pay attention to. And I've started the process with working with the two coaches on this new ancestral memoir. One of the coaches, we do an ancestor constellation each month. She shocked the pants off of me last week.
Wow.
Because she said, "Do you feel like your mother is restricting you in any way?" And I thought about it, because the answer would be yeah, but I thought, no, it's not her. Who is it? My grandmother, my artist grandmother. But her mother died when she was 13. Her first child, Marie, who would have been my Aunt Marie, died at the age of 10 of a childhood disease. And my grandmother's beloved brother, who was 2 years younger than her, died 40 years before my grandmother died in her 90s. So she was surrounded by a lot of death. And so we kind of figured out that she's kind of been protecting me out of love, but restricting me. And so we released that. And I have felt such a difference even in this past week of that happening.
Yeah.
And so I'm still figuring that out, but that's definitely transformation.
It is. And we know part of what we're saying is transformation comes in many ways, but part of transformation comes because Catherine Ponder said this better than anybody I know. For those of you that are thinking, who's Catherine Ponder? You can Google Catherine Ponder, but when you go back, you'll see she was one of the foundational people to really talk and adapt prosperity and spirituality together. Now, since Catherine Ponder, there were a lot of people, wrote a lot of books, what the bleep, but all of them, she is the pioneer. And her work came from two other women. And one of the things she talks about a lot is the idea that when we are in that space, we're either going to choose prosperity or we're going to choose pausing.
Oh.
And I thought, what? But when you put it into reality, she's right. When you
Yeah.
choose prosperity, and I interviewed Bob Parsons, the owner of GoDaddy, who sold GoDaddy, and I never forgot what he said, but it's the same thing differently. And you're saying it today. Bob never worries. I took that one thing he said to me, and I have been practicing that for 8 weeks now, and I'm getting ready to send him a message.
Oh, give me some of that energy.
It's very simple. He doesn't worry. But why? Here's why. When you have unwavering faith,
Yeah.
and the strength of your
Delusional
conviction,
thinking.
but that's what you're talking about. But sometimes we have to step in a pothole and get
Yes.
out of it. Isn't that what you're saying? Follow the signs. It's okay to be afraid, but it's not okay to be your fear, is it?
That's absolutely right. I mean, we're human. We're going to be afraid. It's a human emotion, just like joy or sadness or whatever. But, do you ever go into a new elephant-sized call project and say, I've got this. There's no way that I'm afraid. You go in afraid. Georgia O'Keeffe had a wonderful quote about that everything she ever did in her life, she went into it being afraid.
Yeah, me too.
And me too. And so I feel that way writing this book. I woke up like at 3 o'clock in the morning this past eve or last night, and because we're working on the table of contents, and all of these negative voices came in that, no, you can't say that, you can't say this. And the stuff started bubbling up, really negative feelings. And I thought, okay, that's the enemy trying to get you to turn around, back down. Don't do it. So take that fear, but use it in a positive way to move forward.
Yeah. I love the book that came out. I never got to interview her, and she wrote and oh God, I'm skipping her name now. The book is called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. It was one of the most transformative books I had ever read. And when I read it, I said, okay, I can be afraid from anywhere from 1 to 3 seconds, and then I cannot be afraid.
Yeah. It's like having a pity party for an afternoon or something, maybe a day, but then you move on, right?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Vicki. What a great topic today. Now, how do we keep up with you? How do we follow you? All of the above.
The best way is through my website, which is vickyworldart.com, VICKI worldart.com. You can see sculptures, paintings, my 2 stage plays. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram at vickyworldart.com. And so I post all the time, my progress stuff. So that's the best way.
Thank you so much. What a powerful, powerful show. And for all of you out there, if you see something, don't judge it. It doesn't have to be, and it could be a gnat.
Yes.
It could be a gnat. Just pause for a minute and just take it in. The message will be revealed to you at some point if you stay open, right, Vicki?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. I love it, everybody. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. We are all born with gifts that we are meant to use to improve the world. Join me, Vicki Todd, and Dr. Pat on Shine, Delusion, Shine, the radical art of dreaming beyond boundaries, each 4th Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio. Shine, Delusion, Shine is a springboard to believing, dreaming, and thinking beyond the ordinary, and a catalyst to living a more fulfilling, destiny-driven life. For more information, visit vickyworldart.com.